On a damp and overcast afternoon, a man in a dark suit walks through the dense trees of a remote forest. Tied to a thick rope, an injured horse is dragged with effort, its hooves bleeding on the leaf-covered ground. Without stopping, the man ties the animal to a tree and walks back the same way without looking back. A black bear, hiding among the rocks, watches in silence. The man's footsteps fade away, leaving only the whisper of wind in the branches. The horse tries to rise, but blood has already stained the earth around it. Then, another sound breaks the silence. A human step, slow, coming closer and closer. Love stories with animals? Then, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single one. Thanks for being here. Now, back to our story. The thunder rolled across the Kentucky hills as rain pelted down through the dense canopy of oak and maple trees. 12-year-old Noah Parker pressed his thin body against the bark of an ancient sycamore, seeking shelter from the sudden summer storm. The boy's clothes, already too small and worn at the edges, clung to his slender frame, his sandy brown hair plastered to his forehead. 3 months living with Aunt Marjorie in this remote corner of Harlan County hadn't made the woods feel like home, but they had become his refuge. Noah had been exploring the outskirts of Blackwood Estate, the sprawling horse farm that bordered his aunt's modest property, when the skies opened up. He knew he wasn't supposed to be this far from the house, knew Aunt Marjorie would purse her lips in that tight, disapproving way if she discovered his trespassing. But lately, he couldn't bear the suffocating silence of her home, not when every corner held the ghost of his absence. Dad. The thought came unbidden, bringing with it the familiar ache. 3 months since the mining accident, and still the pain felt fresh as a new bruise. Noah swallowed hard against the lump in his throat, focusing instead on the rain pattering against the leaves above him. He hadn't cried since the funeral, wouldn't cry now. Men didn't cry. That's what Uncle Frank had said before he'd left for his trucking job, leaving Noah alone with an aunt who barely acknowledged his existence. A sound, different from the steady drumbeat of the rain, caught Noah's attention. A low, pained whicker that seemed to come from somewhere deeper in the woods. Noah frowned, peering through the curtain of rain. It came again, weaker this time, but unmistakably the sound of a horse in distress. Noah hesitated only a moment before pushing away from the tree's shelter. He moved carefully through the underbrush, following the sound until he reached a small clearing. What he saw there made him freeze, his heart hammering against his ribs. A horse lay on its side in the mud, its once magnificent chestnut coat now dull and caked with dirt. One of its legs was awkwardly bent, and even to Noah's untrained eye, the animal was in terrible shape. Ribs protruding sharply against its skin, open sores visible along its flank. A length of frayed rope was still tied around its neck, the end trailing in the mud as if it had been tethered and then abandoned. "Hey there," Noah whispered, approaching slowly, hands held out in front of him. The horse's ears flicked in his direction, and it raised its head slightly, dark eyes regarding him with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." As Noah drew closer, he could see the horse was trembling, whether from fear or cold or pain. He couldn't tell. Probably all three. He shrugged off his already soaked jacket and gently draped it over the animal's shoulder, knowing it wouldn't provide much warmth, but wanting to offer something, anything, to ease its suffering. "Who did this to you?" he murmured, kneeling in the mud beside the horse's head. The animal released a shuddering breath, and Noah felt something crack open inside his chest, something he'd kept tightly sealed since the day they'd told him his father wasn't coming home. He recognized the look in the horse's eyes. It was the same one he saw in the mirror every morning, lost, abandoned, broken. The rain began to ease, and Noah noticed something he hadn't seen before. a small, partially obscured brand on the horse's shoulder. Carefully, he brushed away the mud to reveal an elegant B intertwined with a W, the Blackwood crest. This was one of Harrison Blackwood's prized racehorses. Noah had seen them sometimes, exercising on the training track visible from the road, powerful, gleaming creatures worth more than his aunt's entire house. But if that was true, what was this horse doing here, alone and clearly dying in the woods? Noah sat back on his heels, thinking hard. Everyone in the county knew Harrison Blackwood. The man was practically royalty in Kentucky horse racing circles. His thoroughbreds regularly competed in the Derby, and his wealth was evident in everything from his massive Georgian mansion to the fleet of luxury cars that occasionally roared past Noah on the narrow country roads. Why would someone like Blackwood abandon one of his horses? A memory surfaced, a conversation he'd overheard at Dalton's General Store last week. Two men talking in low voices about Blackwood's top Derby, hopeful pulling up lame during training. "That's $1 million investment down the drain," one had said, shaking his head. "Blackwood won't be happy." Was this that horse? Noah reached out tentatively, running his hand along the animal's neck. The horse didn't flinch away, which Noah took as a good sign. "Did he throw you away because you got hurt?" he whispered. "That's not right. That's not how you treat family." Because that's what horses were to the people Noah had grown up around. Family. His father might not have owned fancy thoroughbreds, but he taught Noah that animals deserved respect and care. "They depend on us, son," he'd said once, as they'd tended to a neighbor's sick cow together. "That means we have a responsibility." The responsibility now weighed on Noah's thin shoulders as he looked at the suffering animal before him. He couldn't leave it here to die. But what could one 12-year-old boy do for a horse this size, this injured? "I'll be back," Noah promised, getting to his feet. "I swear I'll be back with help." The horse's eyes followed him, and Noah felt the gaze like a physical touch. "Don't leave me." The unspoken plea was clear as day. "I promise," Noah repeated firmly, then turned and ran through the woods toward home, his mind racing faster than his feet. Aunt Marjorie wouldn't help. She barely had enough money to feed the two of them, let alone a horse, and she'd made it clear from the start that Noah's presence was an unwelcome obligation, not a choice. The neighbors were all struggling. Too many families barely getting by since the mine had cut back operations. Noah burst from the tree line onto the gravel road that led to his aunt's weathered farmhouse. As he ran, a plan began to form in his mind. Behind the house was an old tobacco barn, unused for years. The roof leaked in spots, but it was sturdy enough if he could somehow get the horse there. But how? The animal couldn't walk, that much was clear. Noah was strong for his age. Working alongside his father in their vegetable garden had built wiry muscle, but he couldn't possibly move a full-grown horse by himself. As the house came into view, Noah spotted his aunt's ancient wheelbarrow propped against the side of the shed. It wasn't much, but it was something. He'd need rope too, and water, and whatever food might be suitable for a horse. The logistics seemed impossible, but the image of those dark, pain-filled eyes steeled his resolve. Noah slowed to a walk as he approached the house, not wanting to attract his aunt's attention. Through the kitchen window, he could see her hunched figure at the table, cigarette smoke forming a hazy cloud around her head as she sorted coupons, her Sunday afternoon ritual. With any luck, she wouldn't notice his absence for another hour at least. He crept around to the shed, gathering supplies with quiet efficiency: rope, an old tarp, a bucket, some tools. His father's voice seemed to guide his hands. "Always be prepared, Noah. Think 3 steps ahead." The wheelbarrow's wheels squeaked slightly as he maneuvered it away from the house, and Noah winced, glancing nervously at the kitchen window. But Aunt Marjorie didn't appear. As Noah headed back toward the woods, the Wheelbarrow bumping along ahead of him, determination settled over him like a second skin. He didn't know exactly how he was going to save this horse, but he knew he had to try. For the first time since his father's death, Noah felt a sense of purpose burning in his chest, replacing the hollow emptiness that had become his constant companion. The horse was exactly where he'd left it, though its breathing seemed more labored now. Noah dropped to his knees beside it, stroking its neck gently. "I'm back, just like I promised," he whispered, "and I'm going to help you. We're going to help each other." The horse's ear twitched, acknowledging his presence. In that moment, something passed between boy and animal. A silent understanding, a covenant formed in the quiet of the Kentucky woods. Noah didn't have much to give, but what he had, his time, his effort, his heart, he would give freely to this abandoned creature. "I'm going to call you Valor," Noah decided, the name coming to him suddenly, "because that's what we both need right now. Courage." He settled the tarp on the ground next to the horse, beginning the seemingly impossible task of moving the injured animal onto it. "And I think we're going to find it together." As the afternoon shadows lengthened across the clearing, a boy with 2 small clothes and 2 large responsibilities worked with grim determination to save a life that others had deemed worthless. And though neither could have known it then, this act of compassion would set in motion events that would change not only their futures, but the futures of everyone in their small corner of Kentucky horse country. The old tobacco barn groaned in the pre-dawn light, its weathered boards shifting slightly in the autumn breeze. Inside, Noah sat cross-legged on a bed of straw, his math textbook open but forgotten on his lap as he watched Valor eat. It had been 3 weeks since he'd found the horse in the woods, 3 weeks of exhausting secret labor, waking before sunrise to care for the animal, rushing home after school to change Valor's bandages, stealing moments throughout the day to bring water and whatever food he could scrounge. "You're looking better today," Noah murmured, reaching out to stroke Valor's neck. The horse's coat was beginning to regain some of its shine, though the animal was still painfully thin. The leg that had been injured was healing slowly. Noah had done his best with makeshift splints and poultices made from herbs he'd found in his aunt's garden, knowledge gleaned from hastily borrowed library books on equine care. Valor nickered softly, nudging Noah's shoulder in what had become a familiar gesture of affection. Noah smiled, a rare expression these days, and offered an apple he'd saved from his lunch. "You're welcome," he said, as the horse's soft lips tickled his palm. "But you've got to be quiet, remember? It's our secret." And it was a secret that was becoming increasingly difficult to keep. Aunt Marjorie had started to notice things: the missing food, Noah's perpetual exhaustion, the hay he'd borrowed from neighbors' fields. Just yesterday, she'd cornered him at breakfast, her thin face pinched with suspicion. "You've been sneaking out," she'd stated flatly, not a question. "Where to, boy?" Noah had stared at his cereal, unable to meet her eyes. "Just exploring." "Ma'am? Well, it stops now. I didn't ask for this responsibility, but since your father saw fit to burden me with it, the least you can do is behave." Her voice had softened slightly then, not with warmth, but with weariness. "I can't afford any more trouble, Noah. The bills are piling up as it is." Guilt had twisted in Noah's stomach. He knew his aunt was struggling. Her waitressing job at the diner barely covered their basic needs, but he couldn't abandon Valor. Wouldn't. A sharp rap on the barn door jolted Noah from his thoughts. His heart lurched painfully as he scrambled to his feet, pressing a finger to his lips to signal Valor to be quiet. A useless gesture, but one that had become instinctive. "Noah, you in there?" The voice was young, female, and familiar. Relief washed over him as he recognized Lily Martinez's voice. He hurried to the door, opening it just enough to slip outside, careful to keep Vala hidden from view. Lily stood on the dusty path, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, school backpack slung over one shoulder. At 13, she was a year older than Noah and lived on the neighboring property with her grandmother. "You're going to be late," she said, her eyes narrowing as she took in his rumpled appearance. Again, Noah ran a hand through his hair, aware of the straw clinging to his clothes and the smudges of dirt on his hands. I know. Just give me 5 minutes to change." Lily crossed her arms, unconvinced. "This is the third time this week I've had to come get you. Miss Jenkins is going to call your aunt if you keep this up." The threat of his teacher contacting Aunt Marjorie was enough to spur Noah into action. "I'll be right back," he promised, already backing toward the house. Don't go in the barn, okay?" Something in his tone must have betrayed him because Lily's expression shifted from annoyance to curiosity. "Why not? What are you hiding? In there?" "Nothing, just, it's not safe. Rotten floorboards." Noah turned and sprinted toward the house before she could question him further, but the damage was done. Lily Martinez had the stubborn determination of someone twice her size, and Noah knew she wouldn't let this go easily. He changed clothes in record time, splashed water on his face, and grabbed his backpack, all while avoiding Aunt Marjorie's gaze. She sat at the kitchen table, cigarette dangling from her thin fingers, eyes fixed on a pile of bills. She didn't look up as he mumbled a hasty goodbye. Outside, Noah found Lily exactly where he feared she'd be, peering through a crack in the barn door. Her eyes were wide with shock as she turned to face him. "Noah," she whispered, "there's a horse in there, a racehorse." Noah grabbed her arm, pulling her away from the barn. "You can't tell anyone," he hissed, panic rising in his throat. "Please, Lily." "But where did you get a horse? Did you steal it?" Her voice rose slightly, and Noah winced, glancing nervously toward the house. "No, I found him in the woods. Abandoned. He was dying, Lily. Someone left him there to die." The memory still made anger flare hot in Noah's chest. "I think he belonged to Harrison Blackwood." Lily's expression darkened at the name. Everyone in town knew Harrison Blackwood, and not all the stories were flattering. The racehorse owner? Why would he abandon a horse? Because Vala got hurt. He couldn't race anymore, so Blackwood threw him away like garbage. Noah's hands clenched into fists. "I couldn't leave him there." Lily was quiet for a long moment, studying Noah's face. Finally, she sighed. "You need help. That horse looks half-starved, and whatever you did to its leg..." "I'm trying my best," Noah defended, hurt by the criticism even though he knew she was right. "I don't exactly have a vet I can call." "Actually," Lily said slowly, "my grandmother used to work with horses before her arthritis got bad. She might know what to do." Hope flickered in Noah's chest, quickly followed by fear. "But she might tell someone. Aunt Marjorie would make me get rid of him." "Abuela keeps secrets better than anyone," Lily assured him, "and she hates Blackwood. She used to clean houses for some of the wealthy families, and she says he treats his staff like they're beneath him." Noah hesitated, weighing his options. Vala needed proper care that Noah, with all his determination, simply couldn't provide alone, and he was tired, bone-tired, from trying to manage everything by himself. "Okay," he finally agreed. "After school." Lily nodded, her expression softening. "After school. Now come on, or we really will be late." The school day dragged by in a blur of anxiety and impatience. Noah couldn't focus on his lessons, too preoccupied with thoughts of Vala and what Lily's grandmother might say. What if she insisted on reporting Blackwood? What if she told Aunt Marjorie despite Lily's assurances? What if Vala's injuries were too severe to heal without professional help? By the time the final bell rang, Noah's stomach was in knots. He met Lily at the school gates, and they walked back to the farm in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. When they reached the barn, Noah hesitated, his hand on the weathered door. "He's been through a lot," he warned. "He gets scared sometimes with new people." Lily nodded understanding, and Noah pushed the door open. Inside, Valor stood in the patch of sunlight streaming through a hole in the roof, his head raised at the sound of their entrance. The horse tensed visibly at the sight of Lily, taking a few awkward steps backward. "It's okay," Noah soothed, moving to Valor's side. "She's a friend. She's here to help." Lily approached slowly, her movements careful and deliberate. "He's beautiful," she murmured, stopping a few feet away from the horse. "Even like this, you can tell he was something special." Pride swelled in Noah's chest. "He is special. He's the bravest horse I've ever seen." Lily studied Valor with a critical eye. "His leg looks bad, and he needs more food. The right kind of food. Abuela will know what to do." She turned to Noah, her expression serious. "We should bring her here tomorrow, Saturday, when there's no school and your aunt works the lunch shift at the diner." Noah nodded, grateful for Lily's practical thinking. She'd already grasped the logistics of his situation better than he had. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for not telling anyone." Lily smiled, a quick flash of warmth. "That's what friends are for." She reached into her backpack and pulled out a slightly bruised apple. "I saved this from lunch, may I?" Noah nodded, and Lily held out the apple on her flat palm, the way Noah had learned to do. Valor regarded her warily for a moment, then stretched, his neck forward, accepting the offering. Lily laughed softly as the horse's lips tickled her hand. "See, he likes you," Noah said, relief evident in his voice. "Smart horse," Lily replied with a grin. Then more seriously, "Noah, what's your plan here? You can't keep him in this barn forever. Your aunt will find out eventually." The question had haunted Noah for weeks, but he still had no answer. "I don't know," he admitted. "I just knew I couldn't let him die." Lily was quiet for a moment, watching as Valor retreated to his makeshift bed of straw. "What Blackwood did was wrong," she said finally. "If people knew, they wouldn't care," Noah cut in bitterly. "Blackwood owns half the county. Nobody's going to cross him for the sake of one horse." "Maybe," Lily conceded. "Or maybe they just need someone brave enough to speak up first." She glanced at her watch and sighed. "I should get home. Abuela will worry." She headed for the door, then paused, looking back at Noah. "Get some rest, okay? You look like you haven't slept in days." After she'd gone, Noah sank down onto the straw beside Valor, suddenly aware of just how exhausted he was. The horse lowered himself carefully to the ground, mindful of his injured leg, and rested his head near Noah's knee. Noah stroked the animal's forehead, finding comfort in the rhythmic motion and the warmth of Valor's presence. "We're going to be okay," he whispered, trying to convince himself as much as the horse. "We have help now." As if in response, Valor released a gentle sigh, his dark eyes drifting closed. Noah leaned back against the barn wall, allowing his own eyes to shut. Just for a minute, he told himself. Just a short rest. He dreamed of his father that night, for the first time since the funeral. In the dream, they were walking together through summer fields, his father's strong hand on his shoulder, voice warm with pride. "You did good, son. You stood up for what was right." Noah woke with tears on his cheeks, and Valor's head still resting against him, the horse's body providing warmth against the autumn chill. Outside, the stars were bright in the Kentucky sky, 1,000 silent witnesses to the covenant between a broken boy and a discarded champion. "We're going to be okay," Noah repeated, and this time he almost believed it. Dawn found him still, in the barn, keeping vigil beside his four-legged friend, both of them outcasts, both survivors, both finding in each other the strength to face another day. And for the first time since his world had collapsed, Noah Parker felt something like hope unfurling in his chest, fragile as a new leaf, but growing stronger with each passing moment. Elena Martinez moved with the deliberate care of someone who had spent a lifetime around animals. Despite her 72 years and the arthritis that gnarled her fingers, there was nothing hesitant about the way she examined Vala's injured leg. Noah watched anxiously from the corner of the barn, Lily at his side, both holding their breath as the older woman worked. "This was not an accident," Elena finally said, her accent thickening with anger as she straightened. "The rope burns on. His neck, the pattern of the injury. Someone tied him and left him to suffer." Noah's hands curled into fists. "I knew it. It was Blackwood, wasn't it?" Elena wiped her hands on a cloth, her dark eyes unreadable. "I cannot say for certain, but this horse has the breeding of a champion. See the shape of his head, the breadth of his chest. This is no ordinary farm horse." She reached into her bag and produced several small jars. "I've brought herbs for poultices that will help with the healing. And proper feed." Relief washed over Noah. "So you'll help us?" Elena regarded him steadily. "I will help the horse, and you, Nino, for your good heart. But this secret cannot last forever. Already the animal looks better than when Lily described him to me, but he needs more space, proper exercise." "I know," Noah admitted, running a hand through his hair, "but I don't know what else to do. If Aunt Marjorie finds out..." "Your aunt has her own burdens," Elena said, her tone softening. "She is not unkind, just overwhelmed." Noah wasn't so sure about that. In the month since his father's death, Aunt Marjorie had barely spoken to him except to issue instructions or complaints. She provided food and shelter, but nothing more, certainly not the warmth or guidance Noah desperately needed. He kept these thoughts to himself, though, not wanting to seem ungrateful for Elena's help. "The leg is healing, but not straight," Elena continued, moving to mix herbs in a small bowl. "He will always have a limp, but he can have a good life, still, with proper care." Lily joined her grandmother, helping to prepare the poultice. "I told Noah we should tell someone what Blackwood did." Elena's hands stilled. "Careful, Mija. The Blackwoods have been powerful in this county for generations. They do not take kindly to being challenged." "But what they did was wrong," Noah protested. "Isn't there a law against animal cruelty or something?" "Laws are for those who cannot afford to ignore them," Elena replied, a lifetime of hard-earned wisdom in her voice. "But..." She hesitated, seeming to weigh her next words carefully. "There is someone who might help. Sheriff Callahan is a good man, fair. His daughter rides horses at the county fair every year. He has no love for the Blackwoods, not since they tried to buy his family's land for their expansion." Hope flickered in Noah's chest. "Do you think he'd believe us?" "Perhaps, but you need proof that this horse belonged to Blackwood." Noah moved to Vala's side, carefully brushing back the horse's mane to reveal the branded insignia. "He has the Blackwood mark. Isn't that proof?" Elena examined the brand, her expression grim. "It helps, but Blackwood could claim the horse. Was sold or given away. We need more." Lily had been quiet, thinking. Now she spoke up. "What about the stable hands? Someone must have been ordered to take Vala into the woods. They would know the truth." Elena nodded slowly. "Carlos Diaz works at the Blackwood stables. His son Miguel is in your class. No, Lily?" "Yes, he sits behind me in English. He doesn't talk much. His father might, especially if he was the one ordered to abandon this horse." Elena's expression hardened. Such an act would weigh heavy on a good man's conscience. A plan began to take shape, But before they could discuss it further, the sound of tires on gravel sent all three of them into a state of alarm. Noah rushed to the barn door, peering through a crack to see Aunt Marjorie's ancient Buick pulling into the driveway. She wasn't supposed to be home for hours yet. "It's my aunt," he hissed, panic rising in his throat. She came home early. Elena moved with surprising swiftness, gathering her supplies. "Lily and I will go out the back way, through the field. You distract your aunt." Noah nodded, already heading for the door, but Lily caught his arm. "We'll come back tomorrow," she promised. "Don't worry." Outside, Noah tried to look casual as he approached the house, though his heart was hammering in his chest. Aunt Marjorie was already on the porch, her face drawn with exhaustion. "What are you doing home?" Noah asked, immediately regretting the accusatory tone. Aunt Marjorie's eyes narrowed. "I live here," she snapped. Then, seeming to make an effort, her voice softened slightly. "The diner was slow. Manager sent some of us home early." She glanced past Noah toward the barn. "What were you doing out there? That old building's not safe." "Just exploring," Noah mumbled, the lie sour on his tongue. "Looking for stuff Dad might have left." Something flickered across Aunt Marjorie's face. Pain, or perhaps guilt. "There's nothing out there but dust and memories, Noah. Come inside. I need to talk to you." The seriousness in her tone sent a chill down Noah's spine. Had she discovered Vala somehow? Was she going to send him away? Foster care had been mentioned after the funeral, before Aunt Marjorie had reluctantly stepped forward. In the kitchen, Aunt Marjorie sank into a chair at the table, gesturing for Noah to sit opposite her. She looked older than her 43 years, the lines around her mouth and eyes deepened by grief and hardship. "I got a call from your teacher yesterday," she began, and Noah felt a mix of relief, not about Vala, and fresh anxiety, school problems. "Ms. Jenkins says you've been falling asleep in class, and your grades are slipping." Noah stared at the scratched surface of the table, unable to meet her eyes. "I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix it, Noah. I promised your father." She broke off, her voice catching. After a moment, she continued, more subdued. "I promised I'd take care of you if anything happened. I'm trying, but you need to meet me halfway." The unexpected vulnerability in her voice made Noah look up. For the first time, he saw beyond his harsh exterior to the woman beneath. Someone who was also grieving, also struggling to adjust to a life she hadn't chosen. "I know," he said quietly. "I'll try harder." Aunt Marjorie studied him, her gaze searching. "Is there something going on, Noah? Something you're not telling me? Because these past few weeks, you've been different, distracted, secretive." For a wild moment, Noah considered, telling her everything, about finding Vala, about the cruelty that had left the horse to die, about the tentative plan to seek justice. But the moment passed. Aunt Marjorie had too many burdens already. He couldn't ask her to shoulder this one too. "I just miss Dad," he said instead, which wasn't a lie at all. Aunt Marjorie's expression softened, and she reached across the table to awkwardly pat his hand, the first gesture of physical affection she'd shown since his arrival. "I know, kid. I miss him too. He was my little brother, you know. Always getting into trouble, always with some wild scheme." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "You remind me of him sometimes." The comparison warmed something in Noah's chest. "Really? Really?" He had that same look you get, like you're figuring out how to move mountains and just need a big enough lever. She withdrew her hand, the moment of connection passing. "Just be careful, okay? Whatever you're up to." Before Noah could respond, a knock at the door saved him from having to formulate an answer. Aunt Marjorie rose to answer. Noah heard a familiar voice, Ms. Jenkins, his teacher, I hope I'm not interrupting, Marjorie. I was just dropping off some books I thought Noah might enjoy. Aunt Marjorie invited her in, and Ms. Jenkins entered the kitchen, her kind face breaking into a smile when she saw Noah. In her mid-30s, with warm brown skin and hair styled in neat locks, Ms. Jenkins had been Noah's favorite teacher even before his father's accident. Since then, she'd gone out of her way to check on him, lending him books and sometimes sitting with him during lunch when the noise of the cafeteria became too much. "Hello, Noah," she greeted, placing a small stack of books on the table. "I thought you might like these. They're about horses. I remember you mentioning you were interested." Noah felt heat rise to his face. Had his secret obsession with learning about equine care been that obvious? "Thanks, Miss Jenkins." Sarah's always been thoughtful that, "Way," Aunt Marjorie commented, and Noah realized with surprise that his aunt and teacher knew each other beyond the parent-teacher relationship. "Would you like some coffee, Sarah? I just made a fresh pot." "That would be lovely, thank you." As the adults chatted, Noah leafed through the books Ms. Jenkins had brought. Detailed guides to horse care, a veterinary manual simplified for laypeople, and most interestingly, a slim volume titled Kentucky Horse Racing: The Dark Side of the Sport. He quickly tucked that one to the bottom of the stack, not wanting Aunt Marjorie to notice it. "Noah seems to have developed quite an interest in horses lately," Ms. Jenkins was saying, accepting the coffee Aunt Marjorie offered. "He's been asking some very specific questions about equine care in our science class." Aunt Marjorie raised an eyebrow. "Has he now?" Noah squirmed under her gaze. "Just curious," he muttered. Ms. Jenkins smiled. "Curiosity is a wonderful thing. In fact, I was thinking Noah might enjoy visiting the rescue center where I volunteer on weekends. We rehabilitate abused and neglected horses there. It's educational, and the work can be quite therapeutic." Noah's head jerked up, hope blooming in his chest. "A horse rescue center? People who might help Valor?" "I don't know," Aunt Marjorie hesitated. "We're pretty busy on weekends." "Please, Aunt Marjorie." Noah didn't have to fake the eagerness in his voice. "I could help out, learn responsibility and stuff." Ms. Jenkins nodded encouragingly. "Many of our volunteers are Noah's age, and it really does teach them valuable skills, not just about animal care, but about empathy, dedication, teamwork." Aunt Marjorie considered, taking a sip of her coffee. "Well, I suppose it would get you out of the house, keep you out of trouble." "Great!" Ms. Jenkins beamed. "I can pick him up tomorrow morning if that works. Around 9? As the details were arranged, Noah could hardly contain his excitement. This was better than their tentative plan to approach Sheriff Callahan or Carlos Diaz. Ms. Jenkins had actual experience with rescued horses, connections to people who could help Valor properly. Later that night, after both Aunt Marjorie and Ms. Jenkins had left, the teacher with a promise to return in the morning, his aunt for her evening shift at the diner, Noah slipped out to the barn with a flashlight and one of the books Ms. Jenkins had brought. Valor greeted him with a soft nicker, nudging Noah's shoulder affectionately. "I think things are going to get better," Noah told the horse, running a hand along his neck. "Ms. Jenkins volunteers at a horse rescue place. She can help us." "Help you?" Valor's dark eyes regarded him steadily, as if understanding. Noah settled on the straw beside the horse, opening the book to a section on rehabilitating injured legs. As he read, his mind raced with possibilities. Maybe the rescue center would take Valor in. Maybe they could prove what Blackwood had done. Maybe, just maybe, justice was possible. Outside, an autumn rain began to fall, drumming softly on the barn's roof. Inside, a boy and a horse kept each other company through the lengthening shadows, each drawing strength from the other's presence. Noah read aloud from the book, his voice a quiet counterpoint to the rain, and Valor listened, his breathing steady and calm. For the first time since finding Valor in the woods, Noah felt like they weren't alone in their struggle. The circle of their secret had widened. First Lily and Elena, now potentially Ms. Jenkins and the people at the rescue center. A community was forming around them, a network of helpers and allies. "We're going to be okay," Noah whispered to Valor, and this time he truly believed it. The road ahead might be difficult, but they wouldn't have to walk it alone. Together, they would find their way to safety, to healing, to justice. As if in agreement, Valor rested his head against Noah's shoulder, his warmth a comfort against the autumn chill. And in that moment, in the quiet sanctuary of an old tobacco barn, a boy who had lost everything and a horse that had been discarded found something precious. Hope, flickering like a candle in the darkness, small but enduring. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new possibilities, but for now, this moment of peace was enough. The Willow Creek Horse Sanctuary sprawled across 30 acres of rolling Kentucky countryside, its white fences gleaming in the morning sunlight. Noah pressed his face to the window of Miss Jenkins's car as they approached, taking in the sight of horses grazing peacefully. In verdant pastures, his mind was racing, thoughts of valor never far from the surface. "It's beautiful," he murmured, earning a smile from Miss Jenkins. "Wait until you meet the horses," she replied, turning onto the gravel driveway. "Each one has a story, just like people do. Some of them sad, but all of them important." Noah swallowed hard, gathering his courage. After a sleepless night, weighing his options, he decided to trust Ms. Jenkins with the truth. She was the first adult since his father who seemed to really see him, to care about what he thought and felt. If anyone would understand why he'd rescued Valor, it would be her. The main barn was a hive of activity. Volunteers mucking out stalls, measuring feed, grooming horses. Ms. Jenkins introduced Noah to Dr. Rebecca Chen, the veterinarian who ran the sanctuary alongside her regular practice. "Sarah tells me you're interested in learning about horse care," Dr. Chen said, shaking Noah's hand firmly. She was in her 40s, with kind eyes and practical clothes, stained with evidence of her work. "We can always use an extra pair of hands around here." "Actually," Noah began, his voice wavering slightly, "I need help for a horse I found." Ms. Jenkins and Dr. Chen exchanged a glance, and Noah rushed on before he could lose his nerve. He told them everything, finding Valor in the woods, the makeshift care he'd been providing, Elena's assessment of deliberate abandonment, the Blackwood brand. The words tumbled out in a desperate flood, weeks of secrecy and worry finally finding release. When he finished, there was a moment of silence. Then Dr. Chen spoke, her voice gentle but serious. "Noah, what you did was incredibly brave and compassionate, but keeping an injured racehorse in an old barn without proper medical care is dangerous, for you and for the horse." "I know," Noah admitted, blinking back tears, "but I didn't know what else to do. He would have died if I'd left him there." Ms. Jenkins put a hand on his shoulder. "You're not in trouble, Noah. We want to help." "Can you take him here?" Noah asked, hope rising in his chest. "He's getting better, but his leg still isn't right, and I can't keep hiding him from my aunt." "Doctor." Chen looked thoughtful. "We need to see him first, assess his condition, and if he truly is one of Blackwood's horses." She exchanged another look with Ms. Jenkins. "There are legal implications. Blackwood could claim theft." "But he abandoned Valor," Noah protested, "left him to die." "And if we can prove that, it changes everything," Dr. Chen agreed. "But we need evidence." "Elena, Mrs. Martinez, said the same thing," Noah said. "She thought maybe Carlos Diaz, one of Blackwood's stable hands, might know something." Recognition flashed in Dr. Chen's eyes. "Carlos brings his daughter's pony to my clinic. He's a good man, very knowledgeable about horses. She checked her watch. Let me make a few calls. In the meantime, Sarah, why don't you show Noah around? Give him a sense of what we do here. As Miss Jenkins led him through the sanctuary, introducing him to various horses and explaining their stories, Noah felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. For the first time since finding Valor, he wasn't alone in his mission. Adults, competent, caring adults, were taking his concerns seriously, offering real help instead of dismissal or punishment. "This is Phoenix," Miss Jenkins said, stopping at a stall where a dappled grey horse stood watching them calmly. He was rescued from a neglect situation 2 years ago. The owner had fallen ill and couldn't care for his animals properly. Now Phoenix helps with our therapy program for children with special needs. Noah reached out, letting the horse sniff his hand before gently stroking its nose. He seems happy. He is now. It took time, patience, a lot of medical care, but horses are remarkably resilient creatures. Ms. Jenkins's voice softened, like certain 12-year-old boys I know. Noah ducked his head, embarrassed by the comparison, but secretly pleased. They continued their tour, meeting more horses, each with a story of hardship overcome. By the time they returned to the main office, Noah felt certain that Valor would be safe here, would thrive under the sanctuary's care. Dr. Chen was waiting for them, a determined expression on her face. "I've spoken with Carlos Diaz," she said, without preamble. "He's agreed to meet us, but not here. He's afraid of losing his job." "Did he say anything about Valor?" Noah asked eagerly. "Not over the phone, but he seemed troubled. I think your suspicions may be correct." Dr. Chen grabbed her medical bag. "Let's go see your horse, Noah. I need to assess his condition before we make any decisions." The drive back to Aunt Marjorie's farm was tense with anticipation. Noah directed them to park behind the property where the car wouldn't be visible from the house. Aunt Marjorie was working a double shift at the diner today, but Noah couldn't shake the fear of discovery now, when help was finally within reach. Valor nickered softly when they entered the barn, his ears pricking forward at the sight of Noah. Dr. Chen approached slowly, speaking in low, soothing tones as she began her examination. Ms. Jenkins stood and back, giving them space, but her expression was troubled as she took in the horse's condition and the humble surroundings. "You've done remarkably well with limited resources," Dr. Chen finally said, straightening up. "The poultice Mrs. Martinez provided has prevented infection, and the splint is functional if crude. But he needs proper medical care, better nutrition, space to move safely." "So you'll take him?" Noah asked, barely daring to hope. "Yes, but not immediately. We need to transport him carefully, and we need to address the legal issues first." Dr. Chen's expression turned serious. "Noah, what you found, what you've been hiding here, is evidence of animal cruelty, a crime. If Blackwood did deliberately abandon this horse to die, he needs to be held accountable." "But how can we prove it?" Noah asked. "Let me worry about that," Dr. Chen replied. "For now, I'm going to give him a proper examination, take some photographs for documentation, and leave you with better medical supplies and feed. We'll move him to the sanctuary as soon as it's safe to do so." As Dr. Chen worked, taking samples and photographs, Ms. Jenkins pulled Noah aside. "There's something else we need to discuss," she said quietly. "Your aunt needs to know about this, Noah." Fear clutched at Noah's chest. "She'll be mad. She might make me get rid of Valor right away." "I don't think so," Ms. Jenkins said thoughtfully. "Marjorie Parker is a complicated woman, but she's not cruel. And she's your legal guardian. We can't keep making decisions about your welfare without her knowledge." Deep down, Noah knew she was right. The weight of his secret had been crushing him, affecting his schoolwork, his sleep, his relationship with his aunt. But the thought of confession terrified him. "What if she says no?" he whispered. "Ms. Jenkins squeezed his shoulder gently. "Then we'll figure something out together. That's what community means, Noah. Supporting each other through hard times." Before Noah could respond, the barn door creaked open and Lily burst in, breathless from running. "Noah, my dad just called. Your aunt came home early. She's looking for you." Noah's blood ran cold. "But she's supposed to be at work until 6. "The diner's closed," Lily explained. "Some kind of plumbing emergency. She's heading this way." Panic seized Noah, but Miss Jenkins remained calm. "It's time for the truth, Noah," she said firmly. "Dr. Chen and I will support you." As if on cue, Aunt Marjorie's voice rang out from outside the barn. "Noah, are you in there? Miss Jenkins's car is here." The barn door swung open wider, and Aunt Marjorie stood framed in the entrance, her expression changing from confusion to shock as she took in the scene. Noah standing beside a clearly expensive horse, Dr. Chen with her medical supplies, Miss Jenkins looking determinedly supportive. "What in God's name is going on here?" Aunt Marjorie demanded, her voice barely above a whisper. For a terrible moment, Noah couldn't speak, fear closing his throat. Then Valor nickered softly, nudging Noah's shoulder as if in encouragement, and the words came tumbling out. Noah told his aunt everything, finding Valor in the woods, the secret weeks of care, his suspicions about Blackwood's cruelty, his desperate desire to save the horse's life. As he spoke, Aunt Marjorie's expression shifted from shock to disbelief to something more complex, a mixture of anger, worry, and surprisingly, a flicker of pride. "You've been keeping a racehorse in my barn for a month," she said flatly when Noah finally fell silent. "A racehorse that belongs to the richest, most powerful man in the county. He doesn't deserve to own Valor," Noah said fiercely. "He left him to die because he got hurt and couldn't race anymore." Aunt Marjorie turned to Dr. Chen. "Is this true? Did Blackwood abandon an injured horse?" "The evidence suggests so," Dr. Chen replied carefully. "The injuries, the location where Noah found him, the timing that coincides with the withdrawal of Blackwood's Derby, hopeful from competition, it all fits, and we have a potential witness, one of Blackwood's stable hands who may have been ordered to abandon the horse." Aunt Marjorie was quiet for a long moment, her gaze moving from the horse to Noah and back again. Finally, she sighed, a sound of resignation and determination mingled. "My brother would be proud of you, Noah. He always stood up for the underdog, or in this case, the underhorse." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "What do you need from me?" Chippy surged through Noah like a physical force. "You're not mad?" "Oh, I'm furious that you've been lying to me and endangering yourself for weeks," Aunt Marjorie clarified. "But I understand why you did it, and I won't be party to returning this animal to someone who would treat it so cruelly." "We need your permission to move Valor to the sanctuary," Ms. Jenkins explained, "and your support when we take this matter to the authorities." Aunt Marjorie nodded decisively. "You have both. Harrison Blackwood has lorded over this community for too long. It's about time someone stood up to him." The next week passed in a whirlwind of activity. Carlos Diaz, after much hesitation, provided a sworn statement confirming that he had been ordered to abandon the injured horse in the woods, an act that had haunted him ever since. Dr. Chen documented Valor's injuries thoroughly, building a case for animal cruelty. Sheriff Callahan, presented with the evidence, obtained a warrant to inspect Blackwood's racing operation, where further instances of mistreatment were discovered. The story broke in the local newspaper, then spread to national media. A classic David versus Goliath tale of a grieving boy, an abandoned horse, and a community standing against wealth and power in defense of the vulnerable. Harrison Blackwood faced multiple charges of animal cruelty, his racing license suspended pending investigation. The scandal rocked the Kentucky racing establishment, prompting calls for stricter oversight and welfare regulations. Valor, meanwhile, thrived at the Willow Creek Horse Sanctuary. His leg would never fully heal. He would always bear the scar of Blackwood's callousness. But with proper care and rehabilitation, he grew stronger each day. Noah visited every weekend, sometimes staying overnight in the sanctuary's volunteer quarters. The horse would come running, with his distinctive uneven gait, whenever he heard Noah's voice, nuzzling his pockets for the apple that was always waiting. On a crisp autumn afternoon, 6 weeks after Valor's rescue had become public, Noah sat on the fence of the sanctuary's main paddock, watching as Valor grazed peacefully alongside other rescued horses. Aunt Marjorie stood beside him, her face softer than he'd ever seen it. "Your father would be so proud of you," she said quietly. "I should have told you that before. Should have told you a lot of things." Noah glanced at her, surprised by the vulnerability in her voice. "Like what? Like how scared I was when you came to live with me, how I didn't know how to be a parent, how to help you through your grief when I was drowning in my own." She sighed, her breath visible in the cool air. "I shut down instead of opening up. I'm sorry for that, Noah." "It's okay," Noah said, meaning it. The past weeks had changed things between them. Aunt Marjorie had stood by him throughout the investigation, fierce in his defense when Blackwood's lawyers had tried to intimidate them. She'd revealed a strength and loyalty that reminded Noah powerfully of his father. "It's not okay, but we can do better," Aunt Marjorie replied. "Starting with this." She handed Noah an envelope. Inside was a certificate naming Noah as Valor's official adopter through the sanctuary's sponsorship program. "Really?" he breathed, hardly daring to believe it. Aunt Marjorie nodded. "He'll stay here where he can get proper care, but he's yours, Noah. Your responsibility, your friend." She hesitated, then added, "And I've been talking with Dr. Chen about a part-time job for you here on weekends. Paid work, looking after the horses, if you're interested." Noah couldn't speak past the lump in his throat. Instead, he threw his arms around his aunt in a fierce hug, their first since he'd come to live with her. After a startled moment, she hugged him back just as tightly. Across the paddock, Valor raised his head, watching them with those intelligent dark eyes that had first captured Noah's heart in the Kentucky woods. The horse seemed to understand that something important was happening, some healing taking place that went beyond physical wounds. Later that afternoon, as the sun began to set over the sanctuary, Noah sat in Valor's stall, his back against the wall, reading aloud from a book about famous racehorses. It had become their ritual. Noah reading, Valor listening, both finding comfort in the simple companionship. Dr. Chen found them there and paused in the doorway, reluctant to interrupt. "Noah," she said finally, "there's someone here who wants to meet Valor and you." Noah looked up, curious, as a girl in a wheelchair entered the stall. She was about his age, with bright eyes and a hesitant smile. "This is Emma," Dr. Chen explained. "She's going to be part of our new therapy program. We thought Valor might be a good match for her, with your permission, of course." Noah glanced at Valor, who was already stretching his neck toward Emma, nostrils flaring with interest. The horse, who had once been abandoned for his imperfections, might now help others heal from their own wounds. "I think he'd like that," Noah said, moving aside to make room for Emma's wheelchair. "He's a really good listener." Emma's smile widened as Valor gently nuzzled her hand. "He's beautiful," she whispered. "Dr. Chen told me what happened to him and what you did to save him." Noah shrugged, embarrassed by the admiration in her voice. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," Emma said seriously. "Not everyone would have done what you did. Most people would have walked away." The truth of her words settled over Noah, like a warm blanket. He hadn't walked away when it would have been easier to do so. Neither had Lily or Eleanor or Miss Jenkins or even Aunt Marjorie in the end. They had all chosen compassion over convenience, justice over apathy. Together, they had saved not just a horse, but something more important: the belief that one person, even a 12-year-old boy, could make a difference in the face of cruelty and indifference. As the last light of day filtered through the barn windows, casting long shadows across the straw-covered floor, Noah watched as Emma tentatively stroked Vala's nose. The horse stood perfectly still, as if understanding the importance of gentleness with this new friend. In that moment, Noah felt something settle into place within him, a sense of purpose, of belonging, that had been missing since his father's passing. The circle had widened again. From a boy and a horse alone in the woods, to a community united in compassion and justice. From abandonment to belonging, from despair to hope. Vala nickered softly, the sound resonating in the quiet barn. Not the distressed whicker of a dying animal that Noah had first heard in the rain-soaked woods, but the contented murmur of a creature who knew he was home, who knew he was valued despite his scars and imperfections. "We did it, boy," Noah whispered, reaching out to touch the horse's flank. "We found our way." And as night fell over the Kentucky hills, stars appearing one by one in the velvet sky, the sanctuary lived up to its name, a place of safety, of healing, of new beginnings. For an abandoned horse, for a grieving boy, for a community that had rediscovered its moral compass. The road ahead would have its challenges, but they would face them together, stronger for having weathered the storm. In the quiet of the barn, surrounded by the peaceful sounds of horses settling for the night, Noah felt his father's presence, more strongly than he had since the funeral, not as a painful absence, but as a guiding light, a legacy of compassion and courage that lived on in his own actions. And for the first time since the world had shattered around him, Noah Parker felt truly, completely whole. If you were touched by Noah and Vala's journey, please subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories that remind us of the power of compassion. Leave a like and share in the comments what moved you most about this tale. Every story we share is a testament to how love and courage can overcome even the darkest circumstances.